All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Appreciate y'all joining us. We know it's a crazy weather out there. Depending on where you're logging in from, you may not be able to stay on the call. So, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that we had a combination. Was it about half and half, or 3 and 2?
3 and 2, but we have a couple more people who hopped on the call since then, so we might have a pretty good
Very
combination.
good. Okay. So what we'll start with here, for the folks who are not familiar with PSTrax, for those that are, I'm going to apologize in advance, but I'm going to briefly go through who is PSTrax, what do we do, the different modules that we offer, and then we're going to jump into the focus for today for assets. If we have time at the end, obviously, we can look at some other areas, but I just want to make sure that those who are not familiar with PSTrax know what our system is all about. So PSTrax is a cloud-based, web-based system, which means in plain English, it's accessible on any device with internet access. That could be right down to a smartphone, iPad, toughbook, desktop unit, whatever the case may be. But the users that are authorized to log into your site can log in and they can navigate between the various stations. The big difference between PSTrax and some of the other folks that operate in this area is that we actually build the check system for you. We offer 7 different modules that you see. But again, the key is that we build your check system based on the frequency of checks and what you want to check when. If they log in on a smartphone, it would look a lot like this. The crews call this their dashboard. They like to be able to go to one place at a single station and see exactly what is due across their agency or operation, whether it's controlled, PPE, vehicles, SCBA assets that we'll focus on today, supply checks, so on and so forth. If they happen to be deployed to another station for the day, they go up here and they merely log over into that other station and they see the checks due at that location, including the vehicles assigned there. So again, we try to make it very simple for your crews to go in there and navigate and find what checks you want done when. That's fine, but for yourselves on this call as well, if you have anything to do with the administration or supervisory side of that, we want to make sure that the reports are available to you just as easily. So we have reports that are pushed out every 30 days, i.e. expiration date reports. We have daily status reports. You also have the ability to pull down a report just in time because everything is web-based, cloud-based, so you can pull down reports in real time right up to the second of what has been recorded to date. The track issue feature, that's a real fancy way of saying, hey, when the folks are going through and doing their checks, whether they're scheduled inspections or as needed inspections, whatever the case may be, they have the ability to go ahead and set that alert or that notice or maintenance ticket, however you want to refer to it, right from the checklist. They have the ability to take a picture of that issue and then very intentionally have it directed by email and or text to the recipients. So you can be very intentional and specific. You say, for my critical assets, tools and equipment, SCBAs, vehicle maintenance issues, any of the things that we offer, that can go to a select category and a select group of recipients. So you're not sifting through other issues that may not be in your purview. Again, use any device. It's web-based. It will scale itself out to the screen size. We get this question a lot. Do I have to barcode or QR code everything in my agency to use the system? The short answer is no. Our system does allow you to go ahead and use Bluetooth devices if you want, and have them Bluetooth out to your phone or your iPad, scan an item, and then have it pull it up on that gear list or asset list. Quite honestly, the crews would prefer not to go through that extra step. So we build this as if you're never going to have that in place. But at a higher level, it certainly can be used if you are managing hundreds and hundreds of assets in the asset list, and you want to scan several items and then pull them up on your list to take action. You certainly can. For those who have to answer to IT and other areas, it is your data. It's always your data. We just store it in the cloud for you. And again, this is the big difference. We are going to build your check system. For example, on critical assets, you send us a list of all your critical assets. We will build it into your system. We will configure those inspections to take place when you want them to take place or as needed, whether those assets are assigned to a person or an apparatus or a station or unassigned. They will still populate. We'll train you on how to use it. We will roll it out, and then we will help you maintain your system. So when you have large scale changes, you call us, you pick up the phone, you text, email, whatever, and you advise us of those issues. Of course, we're going to show you how to do some of the changes and updates yourself if you'd like, but this is not your new system nightmare. We will continue to service it, and it is unlimited support. Vehicle modules, real quick, for the folks who aren't familiar with us. When we build a vehicle module, it's everything on that vehicle front to back, not just engine and chassis and lights. As you see here, that we have 3 individuals logging into the PSTrax system on their phone. All 3 are checking that apparatus from front to back. Could you have assets that you have deemed to be a critical asset on this rig, where it comes up as not just part of a standard inventory check of that vehicle, but maybe you have an AED or a chainsaw or extrication, jaws of life, whatever that might be, where you say, I want that checked and looked at more deeply than just it's on the vehicle and operational. So assets, again, can be assigned to vehicles. It can be assigned to personnel as far as radios and things like that. Whatever the case may be, that's how we will build it for you. PPE, SCBAs, and critical assets. So folks ask us a lot, well, what is the difference? Well, SCBA and PPE, we're going to build specifically NFPA compliant checks to keep you all compliant, plus whatever department checks you have on that. This is designed to track all your SCBA components, your flows, your hydros, your air fills, your full history. PPE module specifically for your turnout gear, right? Same thing, all of your NFPA inspections, both scheduled and post-call or exposure events. They all have the ability to be able to track history from purchase through retirement, expiration dates, maintenance cost, and initial cost, and asset funding sources. So think of assets as the catch-all. Anything outside of here, people say, well, look, what about my radios, my TICs, my drones, my high dollar technical equipment, medical equipment, hose testing, ladder testing, hydrant inspections, anything that you want to track more than, hey, I think it's on the rig or it's at the station and it's fine. That's the idea behind the asset module. Catch all those other areas. They all provide the same reporting, full history on any item. Expiration date reporting. You can project out a year, 2, 3. Maintenance cost tracking to date, and just as important, funding sources can be tracked to specific assets or gear or SCBAs at the end of the year. Station module, just what you might imagine. Take a big old large heavy rig and pull the wheels and tires off of it and say, I want you to build me building checks, chore, safety, EMS, exterior ground maintenance, all of that. Controlled substance, just what you would imagine, tracking all your narcotics events from the time it hits your agency until the time it is no longer available for the crew to administer. It could be expired, broken, used up, whatever the case may be, designed to track all of that. Consumable supplies is the supply module, EMS supplies, station supplies, repairs. It's managing above and beyond. Yes, I have a full closet, or I think my jump bag's full. Folks asked us to build something much more deep than that, where they can track advanced items, quantities, lot numbers, expirations, restock, usage, automatic alerts, so on and so forth. Again, PSTrax is based here in Denver, Colorado. We have folks scattered across. We have folks all over the world. I need to update my slide, Liz, because I have not captured Japan and Germany on here, where we have folks out there using our system. Doesn't matter if you're one station, folks, or 101. We still build them a station at a time, a rig at a time, and a check at a time. So with that, I am going to jump over to the system itself, unless there are any questions on PSTrax itself before I log in, Liz.
I think you can jump right on in, Dave. You did a fabulous job.
I don't know about that, but we'll go with it. Okay. Here we go.
Let's go.
All right. Okay, folks, what you should see is the sign-in page. And I want to show you all something here, because folks ask me all the time, does it really work on a smartphone? No, I'm teasing. Yes, it does. And you have a login icon on a phone. My son likes to call this my old tired phone because he thinks he's cute. He's not. But I have a login icon. I can log right in. Same as what you were seeing on the big screen. So yes, you can log in on any device with internet access. And the important thing here to cover in the login, and that is you control who gets into your system and how far. And by that, I mean you can go ahead and give access to any user, any crew member, any admin, any officer. You can even give access to your vendors or your fleet shop down the street, people who are helping you service your assets, tools and equipment, vehicles. You control who gets in and how far by the station, then by the module and what they can do. So while that's very, very important, The other part of that is once Dave signs in with the unique user ID and a password and signs in, all reportings and events that I complete are date and time stamped and linked to me. In the report menu down here, you have full accountability of who checked what when, whether it's for compliance, internal audits, just your own peace of mind. This is all blown up on the dashboard here. If I open it up on a smartphone, it would be this screen that I'd swipe over and see the alerts. Then I'd swipe over and see the journal. The idea behind this is very simple. I log in at Station 2 today. Depending on which modules you have active through PSTrax, they will show up down here in your control panel. They will also show up here on the schedule window. If you have medics and they have CS checks, from time to time, they'll have this button activated. Perform supply checks if you have consumable supplies. We can also track them by the vehicles, right down to the stations themselves. The other things that you'll see here will be, PPE, things like that, engines. Now, here you see that I have today, at this point in time, I have 9 assets assigned to this rig. And so there may be checks due on those assets. I could have assets assigned at this point in time to Medic 2. I have the ability to move those assets around from vehicle to vehicle or people to people, whatever that case may be. And I can do that from the gear list. And I will show you, or the asset list. I'll show you that in just a minute. But if I have assets on that rig that need to be checked, it's going to show up. It's going to give me the ability to say, is it present, not present? If this tick is not present, but another one happens to be present, I can enter in that ID number and complete the check. Same thing with radios, tools, equipment, my chainsaw, my drones, AEDs. I may have updates that are still due on some of those things. Again, you tell us the events you want us to build, inspection types, and that's what we will build in. You tell us when you want them to populate and then reset themselves. We will do that as well. So you can see I could have assets assigned here. I have the ability to check assets after a call. I'll get into that in just a minute. What about the assets that might be assigned to a station? As of today, they will show up. But what about all the other assets? Well, that might be down here where, okay, folks, hey, you got some assets due. Go ahead and find your name and click on those. That's probably a radio check for me. But I could come down here and go to that I have some location assigned assets, apparatus assigned assets, things that are still due but aren't necessarily on that scheduled apparatus check or station check. So the idea there is real simple, and we don't want these things to fall through the crack. We want to provide as many opportunities as we can for folks to see. All they need to do is find the big button and click on it. Find the button, click on it. That tells them what they need to check, or come down here and find their own assets, or if they're helping out with the other ones. So we don't want those things to fall through the cracks. Now, when they report something, for those of you who are already familiar with PSTrax, you know what the alert window is all about. This at Station 2, by the way, if I do need to log into another station, I'll go to Station 5. It will bring me the checks that are due today, the apparatus, the assigned assets, so on and so forth. So I can toggle back and forth very simply. Quite honestly, your crews do not care about how we got it built in there. They just want to know where am I today and what is due, and how easily can I report these issues as I go through the inspections. That's vehicle station alerts, PPE, SCBA, assets, supplies, CS. What's important here is that as these items are inspected and alerts are set, they go out in real time to the recipients you tell us to send those to by text and or email. They can take a picture of those issues. But in addition to those going out directly reported to the recipients, they also post up here so that they don't fall off the radar, much like your vehicle and station issues, right? As items are being actioned on, right, you can see that as well. So these things that were reported here previously for a radio test here, or an AED is not operational, if I can't fix that in-house, if I'm the one managing assets, I can come through here and say, okay, I received that. Now what do I need to do? Well, if I can't fix that with my own bench, I'm going to call a shop and set pickup for that radio. And I can put the date. So I want that to be picked up tomorrow by the shop. Now, here's what's kind of neat. I can come through here. Not only do I let Dave know, hey, stand down, we got this, logistics, Lynn, right? Ron Burgundy, don't forget Ron. But I can also come through here and say, if I have a vendor that helps me maintain my assets, or specifically my radios, I can say, as we're talking, I'm going to send you that notice, that ticket, whatever you want to call it. And when I click save, these folks have been notified, it's been reported, and your vendor has been notified, not just by your call, but by email and or text, that it is on its way, or they know to pick that up on the 23rd. To the right over here is the journal feature. And all this is, folks, is just a whiteboard. It's a communication device. You say, well, look, I want to go ahead and post something out to the crew. And some folks have their own internal communications and distribution system. This is built in, there's no additional charge. If, for example, as an officer, say there's some training coming up, I can date it for today, I can future date it. I can type out whatever information I want to share. I can add attachments. I can post it by station or across all stations. But there's some other things that folks are using this for: a pass on, a crew alert, calls, station tour, pass down reports, whatever, daily logs, whatever you want to use this for. Just know that it's built into your system. You don't have to have it activated. Just understand that if you have any module with PSTrax, it's available and it's built in there for free. Down this left side is the report menu. And we'll get to that here. Well, matter of fact, I'll just briefly show you what that's all about. I can go through and I can find my asset list of all of my assets. I can filter out. I can find whatever I need to find and see those items. I can see where they are assigned to. I can do whatever I need. I can go to AEDs, for example. I can just go to here and I can filter out by the various vehicles or assignments where they are right now. I have that AED there. If I don't want that AED, or I move that AED, I can assign that to another rig or user or location, and the scheduled events and all the records, that's the key to this, will follow that asset, regardless of where I move it out, until the time it is ready to retire. So those are the various things in the asset list. Down here, there's some other reports. I'll get to those in just a minute. But let's do a couple of inspections, and what might that look like? If you have assigned assets today, there's assets that are assigned to Engine 2 that need to be checked, or to Medic 2, it doesn't matter. I can go through here and I can say, okay, I'm going to check the tick. I could check all of these things, or I can be very intentional and say, okay, I need to go ahead and check the tick. Well, I'm not sure what to inspect on that. Well, your crew will know, because as they log this, any associated tasks or specific checks for that tick will populate. I'm checking this specific tick. These are the things that I want them to verify. Okay. If for whatever reason it is not working, right, and it's present, power on, filters, battery present, or battery not present, or spares not charged, I can go ahead and set that right now, or just very generically, it's not operational. Do I need to take a picture? I don't have to, but I can. And as I log that item, it's going to ask me, okay, that's fine, but where do you want that to go? Well, it turns out it's going to Dave and our newscaster, Ron Burgundy. But you can add different folks. I would consider this urgent. I can add additional people through my agency to this notice, or probably you would have those built in right from the get-go. And then as they add those individuals, they set that alert. This notice is going out in real time, and it brings them right back and allows them to complete the rest of those checks for these items that today are currently assigned on that vehicle. Much like the other modules, it really follows that same chronology and that same ease of use for your crew members. Now you can say, well, that's great, David, but what about, and by the way, not only did that report out to those individuals as alert recipients, but it posted right here. So now they can go ahead and take action on that. Probably go ahead and set that up, get that thing on the charger. Maybe I want to add a comment. Placed on charger, right? And I want to be able to track that. So now knowing that, I can go ahead and say, Dave, Ron, I've got that. I'm handling it. And click save. Well, now I've notified those folks and everybody else. That's where it is. Okay. So that's the idea behind that. Now, for those on the call, and I don't know, Liz, if they want to chime in, but a lot of our agencies, well, that's great, Dave. You can schedule all the inspections of my assets, and then I can go ahead and send out notices. I can track as they're being completed. But a lot of our folks say that's great, but I need to get all the way around the bases. I need to be able to track when an item has been repaired. And then I would like to be able to track costs involved with that. And what that would look like, for example, if by chance I was able to get this, go into the future a little bit, and this AED was repaired after I sent it out to the shop, I would be able to come along in here and edit and say, okay, repaired, back in service. I could put the shop name if I wanted. If you want to use it to this extent, think of this as your 5-drawer or accounting there in the cloud. I could attach a copy of that repair invoice or PO. I could place the cost of what that repair is to get that back up and running. You don't have to, but you can use it to this extent. Mark it closed. I can let these folks know, hey, it's back in service. It's back on the truck. And I have now completed full circle these issues. I've reported them. I've taken action on them. I've closed them out. When I come over here, this is set up for all of the modules. I can go through my alert archives for any of these issues. I can go to the asset alert archive. I can filter out by station or gear type for anything that I want to see. Any date range, it doesn't matter. I have the ability to go back through and mine whatever data or even posted by which particular individual found the issue. It doesn't matter. All I want the system to do is to go back through and show me the issues that have been identified to date. Are they closed? These are open. This is open. But who reported it? Who closed it? Is there any costs involved with this? And I can find that by sliding over here. I can even change the view of whatever I want to see. I can see, I can close those out. I can move these out, whatever I'd like to do. But the idea behind this is real simple. And I can come across here and I can see the costs involved, whatever I want to do. And I can filter out columns here. But as I'm looking at this, I want the ability to see if there's a picture or electronic attachment of the documentation and the costs involved with these things. If somebody says, that's great, but I need to go ahead and export that report out for these items. I can export it out to print, Excel, or PDF. So this is really just another way to use your system to track the accounting, the documentation, and in many cases to be able to say, yes, in fact, it was not working on that date, but it is working now and have record of that. I'm going to stop right there, Liz, because I have filled in with a whole mouthful of things. And I want to make sure that we are tracking all of the questions as they come up. To me, it's very intuitive, but I do this every day.
You sure do, Dave. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a scheduled versus an as-needed check? Because I think that when we talk about assets, that's kind of an important designation.
Really is. Yeah, and let's use a great example of that. So look, these are my scheduled. In a perfect world, things only fail during a scheduled inspection at the station. Yeah, right. We know that that's not the case, right? So let's go to a real world scenario. And we have Julius, who likes to talk about his Achilles heel was chainsaws being put back in there and not being checked after an extrication event. And he didn't say it quite that nicely. So the idea behind here is for folks to come through and do an as needed, much like you could do an as needed post call on your vehicle checks or your SCBAs or your assets. And what that would look like is we come along and say, I want to do an on-truck check. And it's going to say, of what? Well, I can grab a radio, I could grab the tick, or I could grab the chainsaw. These guys put this thing back dirty, they don't refill it. I've had it with that. I want them to do that. Again, I'm parroting Julius. That's his pet peeve. So I come in here and I say, okay, I want them to check the chainsaw after a call. Well, that's fine. But what do you want them to do? Well, this would be nice. Yeah, I checked the chainsaw. No, is it operational? And I checked it today. So go and say, yeah, I checked it today after the call. Did I start it and run it? Did I sharpen the change, top off the fuel, adjust the bar? But just as simply, I could come along in here and say, sharpen the chain, or the chain needs sharpening. I don't know what we cut through. Maybe we went through something that just wasn't quite right, hit some metal or something, so needs sharpening. So I guess it would help if I could spell Nobody look at my 2-finger typing. Don't make fun of old people. All right. So when I need to sharpen that thing, now I could take a picture of that, or maybe the teeth were sheared off or something to that effect. But as I log this, much like a scheduled inspection, this can go to the appropriate individuals and get that to whoever I need it to. All right. So I can set that as well. And again, the idea behind this is in a perfect world, things only fail during a scheduled inspection. And we know that's not the case with any of our modules. You want to give them the ability to do as needed checks. I could be walking out of the house or the station and just notice something, and I forget how to do it here or here or here. Doesn't matter. You know what? Give them a third option for how to report something. Chainsaw broke after the call. I'm end of shift. I want to notify somebody. I can do that and get that out as well. So I can do those generic alerts as well. What we're trying to do is empower your crew members and staff to be able to chronologically follow what you want them to do during scheduled inspections, but also give them the ability to check things after a call, and they can do that. Now, in terms of reports, well, they said, that's great, Dave, but what if I need to retrieve any of those reports? Well, yeah, all your reports are built in down here. And I'll get to the list here in just a minute. But if I go down to the logs, I have the ability to pull logs, much like I do on any module of any events for your assets, any asset types, or I can just generically ask, okay, who did what checks on these things? Or you know what, I'm just curious as anything. Just show me what's been checked in terms of my assets over the last 30 days. And then this report will go through, it will pull that data for me, and it's going to give me the chance to go through and filter it by the type or by the type of event, whatever that may be. All of these columns on all of our reports, you can filter across here. You can delineate between the asset type. You can see who did what when, and you have that ability to click on that actual event and see that. So all you're trying to do is just empower those individuals. And by the way, if somebody says, well, I need to see a copy of that report, sure, print, Excel, or PDF, whatever that might be. So that's one of the logs. Now, just as important, in my opinion, so I come down here, if I'm managing, let's say I've got the shop for the assets, and I say, you know what, don't really care about the trucks, things going on, not real, excited about the SCBAs, I'm managing assets. All right, I'm going to come to here. I'm going to go to my work report right here. And these are all of my open issues on assets. I could log through all the different stations, but why? This is what I'm going to work off of and manage for the assets that need attention. I can already see what the issues are. I can see whether or not action's being taken on them. And I can come down through here and filter out what I need to do. And much like the other views, I can go ahead and clear out the ones that I don't need to see. Right? And then I have the ability to come over here. So you can grab these things. You can move these columns over however you want. This is all part of what we set up for you, but nothing is static. It continues to be fluid throughout your process. You tell us, I want these things reordered into a different series. Pick up the phone, call us. We'll do it. We'll show you how to grab them. You can literally grab them and move them over here. It's just that simple. But I can take those actions on these things, much like I did on the home page. So again, what you will see with PSTrax, several ways to navigate through the system and to get to the areas that are under your purview and get to those issues and take care of them, track those issues. Also with assets, extremely important, expiration dates. Well, why is that important? Well, one, we're going to send it out every 30 days, but it'd be nice to know what's going to expire actually into the future. And I don't know if I have anything here. But let's look. Well, I sure do. I've got some things that are well past expiration date and some of those that are going to expire. And I can filter out by any of these items as well. And somebody says, well, send me that report. Sure. How would you like that? Print, Excel, or PDF? I'm going to probably export that to Excel. I'm going to add my inflation index, today's economy. I don't know, make that 1.8. And then, all right, 1.08. And get an idea of what I need for my budgets into the future. So that report is available to you again, much like the other ones. The other one I call the Help Me Understand report. And that is the ability for somebody to say, well, what am I spending on maintenance costs to date? Well, these aren't giving me a lot of heartburn here, but I can see specific to these items, what are my maintenance costs to date? But as I start to scroll down through here, I can see where the maintenance costs are exceedingly getting higher, or I can jump right here And now somebody says, well, export that out to me. Sure. What would you like to see? By AEDs? Yeah. What are you spending on maintenance? How would you like that report? So what you're seeing here, folks, and again, there's other things that are available, but what you're seeing is the ability to navigate about. And I use the expression, if I can't get there in 2 clicks, Liz will tell you I get grumpy. And I want to be able to find my information. Yeah, she knows that. Right now, I don't want to search through it. I don't want to go through countless screens. I want to go to my control panel and see those things. Here's something that is very important, and that is the asset list. So right now, I can go through and I can filter out. And here's, by the way, folks, here's an example of all the different things that we build into assets. And this is not all encompassing. For our police agencies out there, we build guns, vests, things like that. For other first responders, I can find my hydrants. I can find all my sticks. I come along in here. Well, why is that important? Well, I'm going to do an annual hose test. Okay, well, maybe in a perfect world, I'd grab all the hose off of engine 2. I'd come along here, and if they're all due for a hose test, in a perfect world, I'd grab them all together, and I could log that event. Right? Well, it'd help if I actually select them. And now when I log that event, it says, well, what do you want to do? I had them all tested today. If they forget what they should be testing for, we can actually add attachments into that to assist your personnel with what are they looking for in a hose test or your vendor. But I come back here, if everything's passed, I can complete that. If there's any costs involved with that, I can put that per stick. I can enter any of those notes, whoever did the hose testing. And once I log that event, I have now batch updated all the annual hose testing for those particular hose on this particular item. Or I could do it individually. I could I could log an event, similar. I could reassign that stick to another rig altogether, and the records will follow that. I can move that over to engine 3, and the records would follow that piece of hose over to that apparatus and now show up on their inspections. So there's quite a few things that you can do here. Again, I could log it, edit, I could retire that. And somebody says, well, yeah, I kind of need those records of things that are retired. You do. You can't say, well, I don't know, it's retired. I don't have to take record of that. You do. So you can come through and see your retired assets. And by the way, in your details, all of your records would follow those items as well. So you have the ability to still mine out those records for whatever date range that might be. And you could go back and find that. Probably more than folks wanted to see, Liz, but as you can see, the asset list and things that we can track in the assets, just think of everything outside of SCBAs and PPE and truck checks. And even if they're on the rig, you can do that. Maybe you have to do hydrant inspections. Okay, where are the hydrants located? All right, I need to do a routine inspection on that, or I need to do a flow. Doesn't matter. What is that event that you want to do? We'll build it. Okay, what am I checking? So you're probably starting to see there, we keep saying over and over again, we like to customize it to fit your agency, but we do. We don't use cookie cutter templates because there's no agency that is a template. Everybody has different needs, different frequencies, different assets they want to track and when. What else, Liz?
Well, actually, I would love you to show a retired report. So for instance, an example, my husband's department just onboarded the asset module, and they were in the middle of changing radios, and a couple of the guys had new the radios, a couple had didn't. So it was a little bit muddled. And so they were able to run a report to show who had new radios, who didn't, and then also just have that historical data behind the reporting. It was super powerful. So if you could show that.
And if I had a radio in here retired, I haven't retired one yet, but if I did, I could certainly do that. But the idea behind this is I could still grab a tick, much like this, because now we are talking something has been retired. But in a perfect world, and let's see if I can capture it. I don't know when he retired it. This may or may not capture it. Let's find out, depending on when Nathan retired out this tick. What I want to be able to do, much like an active asset, is to be able to see those events. I think that's what you were talking about. Now, in terms of radios, and while I'm waiting for this to go through all of its history on my squirrel wheel internet that I have here at my house, you can watch the little gerbil go around. I want to be able to see that history, and I may have gone back quite a bit. Well, you know what? I didn't go back far enough. You can see it retired in 2019. I would have needed to go back all the way to 2019, right? And then go back because I retired it then. So I need to go back to this event. So I did not go back far. I didn't even read my own prompt. I apologize for that. Liz, were you asking about being able to see the history of an item as it moves from one person to another? Because it will track that. This radio was in this person's possession for this period of time. Then it was transitioned over to this person's possession, but all the records follow that radio. Is that what you were asking about?
Yeah,
Well,
if we could, yeah, show the life of that radio from who it went to and then when it was finally opted out. It was discovered ironically during one of these reports that one of the firefighters had like 9 radios, and they're like, what are you doing to these radios?
Well, it's interesting that you talk about that, right? So because radios never walk away on their own, right? But I can pull a radio report, a current asset listing, and where are these radios? And by the way, the radio that grew legs overnight, well, who saw it last and where was it? Kind of like asking my son, not me, report. Did you do this? Not me. Well, you're the only child. You did it. But the idea behind this is I can see who last saw that radio, what was the inspection that they did, and where was it? So I can track that. But yes, I have that ability to go back through and find a specific individual and see, well, Linda, you have 2 radios. Or come down here and find anybody. Dave, you have 1. And they don't trust me with a whole lot. Let's see, Julius, he has 1 radio. So you can track that. And you have that ability to go back through what you were asking about, and that is track that radio's history and has it been moved around quite a bit. So that would show up in the details if I went back far enough. If that has changed possession or any of the things that revolve this, then I probably didn't go back far enough for Nathan. He's on the build team now. I want to be able to see what checks were done or alerts or repairs or things like that. I would probably be better to grab an AED and show you that. But is that what you were asking about? The ideas behind that?
Yeah. I just wanted to illustrate that there is reporting that can really help you keep an eye on the high dollar.
Well, yes, because they never move around. And again, we have people ask us for all sorts of different things. You can have rope, stretchers, ticks, tools and equipment, drones, things like that. And it can follow, all of these things work the same way. They can all give you a history of all inspections, costs, repairs, any of those things. And I can click on those things. I can move them around. I can see that history. I can do whatever I need to do here. I could go back to that asset list and I can move that. I could say, okay, it's no longer here. Well, okay, where is that rolling today or for the next year or so? I can kick it right over to another medic unit, much like anything, or chief's unit. I can't move it to engine 6, but I could come down here and move it to 5. Right? I could do any of those things. I guess I could put it on an engine if I wanted. It doesn't matter. I have access to any of those locations across my system. And again, the records will follow that. Some of the things that are down here in the settings, and I won't go into all of this, but here's some different events. People say, well, what sort of things can you build for us? Well, inventory events. And here's the different breakdowns that can go in there. Radios, is it properly working? Ticks, hydrants, hose, AEDs, on-truck checks, ticks. Anything that you want us to build in, it doesn't have to be just a generic check that says, well, it's in the rig, it's operational. No, you will tell us what you want us to build into these inspections. They can be multi-layer parts of that inspection, much like you see here. So it is not just, yep, it's there, it's fine, or no, it's not there. No, you tell us what you want us to build in. When do you want it to schedule itself? And that's all back here on the back side. I won't take you down into the deep weeds here, folks, but that's the idea behind these things, is scheduling those events. Select an event. What do you want? And it'll ask us, this is everything that we do for you. If you want to move things around, if you want to change those frequencies and things like that, please reach out to us. Let us show you how to do that the first few times, because it is going to be very customizable to what you want checked when. Again, probably more than you wanted to see, but assets is one of those, it just catches everything that isn't a PPE or SCBA. What else, Liz?
That's all the questions that I have on the forum, but we are about 15 minutes to the top of the hour.
Up against the clock, so I want to stop and ask for questions.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to let everybody know on the call, feel free if you do want to see something or ask a question, throw it in that chat or Q&A. You know, not the end of the world if we don't have any, but if you want to see something, now's a great time to hop in and do that. PSTrax is super powerful and the reporting is just phenomenal. So it's really fun to get in there and see what you can show. And I think it's important, Dave kept using the word user. You can set your system very specifically by which users can see what items. So if you have somebody who's kind of your critical asset specialist, they can be the person in charge of that module or those items in that module. If you have an engineer for one of the engines or however it works, you can really customize the reporting of this, who sees what, who can add. Hanover had to lock down and add, you know, radio permissions, for instance, because radios never go home with people ever. So they had to make sure they had kind of a gatekeeper with it. So
that's exactly right. You do control those permission levels. You as admins or officers at your agency have the ability to edit these or update these at any given time. If Eric's not playing well with others, I'll inactivate him and mess with him a little bit, or I'll give him access to some stations, or I'll take some away just to mess with him. He'll pay me back. And then I can control how far they can get into each of these various modules. And that really is important because you may very well determine that I don't want everybody closing out an alert. I want crew members to set alerts, but I want to lay eyes on these things before I close them out and attach documentation or costs. This would be at the admin level. At the user level or shop level, I could say, okay, bring it by, you know, bring it to the shop, you know, for sharpening. That's fine. But when I want it to be closed out and attest that it has been repaired and it is back in service or replaced, I will control who can do that through my user panel. And that's again, there's so much more that it can do, but I don't want to get too far down into the weeds.
Absolutely. And it's a very complicated module and there's so many different uses for it. But if we have answered all of your questions, great. If you have more, you know, also, if you don't want to put them here, you can reach out to us anytime. Anybody on our team is happy to.
Oh, yeah, there's no question off limits. I mean, you know, and it really is going to pertain. This is really going to pertain to the people out there and our clients. They tell us what is a critical asset. Is it by dollar value? Is it critical to their operation? They deem what is a critical asset and how they want it scheduled and inspected and tracked through the system. And that's what our build team does. We build it to that because some folks say, well, at the end of the year, anything over 500, I got to report on. Some folks say, no, they raised it up to 1,000. Some agencies say anything above 250. Township just really gets all upset about that. I need to track my capitalization on my assets and the funding sources at the end of the year. I need to be able to do that as well and find those things. So I go to my radios, for example, and somebody says, well, where'd you spend that money? Well, I'll go to my funding source over here.
Yep.
Right? And I can track those. I can pull that report. So that's another aspect of it. All the parts of it that people don't want to do until they have to do it on paper. And then they go, oh my gosh, sure would be nice if I could automate that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from PSTrax in general. And no matter what module you have is the ability to pull those really powerful reports. You know, because there is reporting, there is accountability. Also, I know of departments that use the reporting to help them justify grants for trying to get funding for something, saying, hey, I spent this much or didn't get enough of this or only have X amount. So there's just a ton of uses. And I know a lot of chiefs really miss the Post-it notes on the file cabinet, but you know, they get over it pretty quick.
Especially when they're the ones that have to pull that cost report at the end of the year. If I think they're running their useful life, that's my first business case scenario. Much like I would pull on a rig or my SCBAs or my PP. It's the same thing with assets. I have to justify the cost has outrun its useful life. I can do that in 2 clicks.
Yes.
And it's history of repairs. You're exactly right.
It's also really an easy way to pull, so for just to involve the community, where your tax dollars are going, where your donations have gone. You could go in and pull a report that says, hey, we did the pancake breakfast and it bought us 5 radios at this cost. Thank you. You know, so there really isn't any downsides, honestly.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of things in there that it can be used for, but And if we don't have any questions, that's fine. That means I either did really well or I have put them all to sleep, or they've seen this before and they just wanted to see a few more things.
Perhaps. Well, we can let everybody go early because that almost never happens. Give everybody 10 minutes back in their day. I am going to launch a quick little follow-up poll right now to everybody who is still on the call. And it's just basically to let us know if there's anything we can help you with after this call.
Although that does say controlled substance.
I just noticed that. I was like, oh, shoot, we have the wrong one. We're talking about assets, guys. Sorry about that. That's an oversight on my part.
She's
But
just testing me to see if I'm paying attention.
I know, and you can spell. I knew you could spell.
Not well, no.
But yeah, if there's anything we can help you guys with, we're happy to get you in touch with the correct people, whether you want to see pricing on the module, want a separate demo, want to talk to customer service or figure out how to set something up or have a question, just go ahead and throw it in here and we will take care of sorting those out and sending them to the right people and getting in touch because we know you are all very busy doing other things. So feel free to let us know, and thank you very much for your time today. We will send this recording out. It will either drop later this afternoon or in the morning. It depends on how finicky Google or YouTube. I knew the words. How YouTube will process our video, but we will send it out to you via email. If you don't see it by tomorrow afternoon, do check your spam folders. They end up in there every once in a while. Otherwise, we're here for you to answer any questions or hop on calls. So thank you, everybody. Be safe out there, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks all.
Bye, Dave.